So let's have a bit of a walk around of the Cerato GT. You can see there the rear, that's what I've done on the rear, is changed the tailpipes. So there is a 1.6 litre turbo, pretty much east-west front wheel drive. So you can have a bit of a look there at what goes on. Righto, so as we move around towards the side of the vehicle, you can see that it has a little bit of the gloss blackouts on it, and these are the tyres that it comes with, which is the Michelin Pilot Sport. Very expensive tyres, which I've mentioned before. And then as we move down the side, you can see the look of that slight stripe that I've put on, which does tend to break the vehicle up a bit. And then around again towards the rear, that hatchback, which is sort of a bit like a shooting brake. Well, this is a road report on the new car, the Kia Cerato GT. Now, it's a bit of a compromise. It's nothing like a GT or a GTI Golf or a i30N, but they're 50,000, and this thing is 30. So it's considerably cheaper. It's 1600 turbo with 200 horsepower, which is plenty big enough, plenty good enough. And with the 7-speed DCT dual clutch transmission, it gets along really nicely. So inside, as you'll see, you can probably see now, but I'll show you a bit later, it's got all the fruit, all the stuff it needs to have inside, and all the safety stuff, which you can probably hear it going beep, beep, beep every now and then. So effectively, it's a $30,000 GT car for the masses. So set in the market just below the hot hatches, so you could probably call it a warm hatch. But for our purposes, it's pretty good because it's well enough for me a hot hatch. I don't drive like I used to anyway, so warm is good enough. It's also quite tractable for Carmen to drive because this is the car, the second car that we have other than the Land Cruiser, and we have this thing. So during the week, it's Carmen's car. On the weekend, I can take it out and have a bit of fun with it, and belt it down a few country roads when we're out of our home detention or under house arrest. So when that's all over, hopefully we can go out and give it its head. It's only brand spanking new. It's only got 212 kilometres on it. Still on the original full tank of petrol we got. So it's still pretty cheap. And I could tell you a little bit about the safety stuff, as you can hear it beeping, but we'll go through that separately on another stage. It's front wheel drive, and it doesn't have a limited slip diff, but that doesn't seem to matter. They went a bit crazy and put really expensive Michelin Pilot Sport S4S tyres on it. So they're about, I've looked into them, they're about $250 each. So no wonder they hang on, and they do that, they hang on. So that changes a lot of the handling, but the car itself is probably about 5 millimeters lower than the standard Cerato, and what happens is I sit a little bit lower than what I would normally do, so the centre of gravity is a little bit lower. As far as performance goes, around town it's okay. Once you get used to the dual clutch, it's quite acceptable. But when you get up it, it's certainly get up towards that 200 horsepower. It's got some get up and go. So it doesn't really matter too much about the limited slip diff, because at that sort of speed, when you're up in the over 80 km/h area, it doesn't really matter so much about the limited slip diff, unless of course you're tracking it, so which we won't be doing. So all in all, it's probably a really good compromise. If we look at the things that I've done to it to try and make it a little bit personalised, it has a what's probably called a sports exhaust, but it has a little bit of a note to it, which is pretty neat. So all I had to do was change it had standard oval chrome tips on it, single tip either side, so dual exhaust with a transverse mounted muffler. So all I did was change the tips to quad tips, and it looks as good as I reckon, looks as good as a Golf R. It's certainly got that attitude behind. The splitter is designed, I think, to take those twin tips rather than the piddly little oval ones that it's had before. So that's good. I've done the brake calipers red. Much to my daughter's disgust, I put a pinstripe on it, but all in all, I think it looks pretty good. And it's a little bit more personalised than the standard GT. I've debadged it, so it's really I've taken the Cerato badges off it, so it's just the Kia GT. So if you like, my baby Stinger, which is just designed to, although all those modifications designed to make it look like a baby Stinger. The engine is, as I said, a 1600 turbo. The standard ones are 2 litre naturally aspirated, but they only have 150 horsepower, whereas this has 200, and it's a little bit lighter than the 2 litre, so it gets along quite nicely. It has a pretty good noise, a pretty good sound. It's a little bit enhanced in sport mode, so if I whip it into sport mode and give it a bit of boot, you can hear how that sound is quite good. So some of that goes out the exhaust, so it does sound pretty reasonable from outside, but from inside there is that fake sound, but I don't mind it. It's quite okay.